I spent 6 days baking my 24-year-old son's birthday cake, only to hear him say it looked like vomit. Then I did something that would make him regret those words forever. My hands were still trembling from exhaustion when Derek walked into the kitchen that Saturday afternoon. 6 days. 6 entire days of my vacation time spent crafting what I thought would be the perfect gift. A 4-layer masterpiece with hand-piped buttercream roses in his favorite colors, each petal painstakingly formed with a steady hand and a mother's love. He barely glanced at it. Vanessa, his girlfriend, strutted in behind him, her designer bag swinging from her arm. The bag I later discovered he bought with my money. She looked at my cake, wrinkled her nose, and let out the sharp, cruel laugh that still echoes in my nightmares. Derek shrugged, his eyes never leaving his phone screen. It looks like vomit, Mom. Honestly, you should have just ordered something from a bakery. The words hit me like a physical blow. 6 days. My feet aching from standing. My back screaming from hunching over the counter. The burn on my wrist from the oven that I'd wrapped and ignored because I wanted this to be perfect for him. Vanessa laughed harder. She actually took a photo of it. I stood there in my flour-dusted apron, this cake that represented every ounce of love I had left to give, and something inside me didn't just crack. It shattered completely. But here's what Derek didn't know. What neither of them knew. That cake, that horrible, humiliating moment, wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of the most liberating decision I'd ever make. Before continuing, if this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, because every day I'm bringing you stories of women who turn their deepest pain into a new good way of living their lives. What I did next would change everything. I need to take you back. Back to when Derek was just a baby with chubby cheeks and eyes that looked at me like I hung the moon. Back to when his father walked out on us without a backward glance, leaving nothing but an empty closet and a note that said he wasn't ready for this life. I was 28 years old, alone, terrified, and holding a 6-month-old baby who wouldn't stop crying. I became a nurse. Not because I had some calling, but because it was practical. Good insurance. Stable income. Enough to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. I worked double shifts at Portland General Hospital, my feet swollen in those white orthopedic shoes, my back aching from lifting patients twice my size. Derek's first word wasn't mama. It was bye, because that's what I was always saying as I rushed out the door to another shift. I missed his first steps because I was cleaning bedpans on the night shift. I missed his kindergarten play because I'd picked up an extra weekend to pay for his new winter coat. Every mother's guilt you can imagine, I carried it. Heavy and constant, like a stone in my chest. But I told myself it was worth it. I was building a future for him. For us. When Derek turned 16, I threw him a surprise party. I saved for 3 months to rent out a room at the community center, hired a DJ, bought decorations. He showed up an hour late, barely thanked me, and spent the whole time complaining that I hadn't gotten him the expensive gaming console all his friends had. I worked overtime for 2 months to buy it for Christmas. He never said thank you. By 18, Derek had graduated high school with mediocre grades and big promises. College was the answer, he said. He'd study business, make something of himself. I took out loans I'm still paying off. He dropped out after 3 semesters, claiming the professors didn't understand his vision. He moved back home. Temporarily, he said. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of him sleeping until noon while I left for the early shift. 6 years of coming home to a sink full of his dirty dishes, his laundry piled in the bathroom, his pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table. 6 years of him cycling through jobs that never lasted more than a few months because the boss was unfair or the work was beneath him or the schedule didn't work with his lifestyle. His lifestyle. As if playing video games until 4 a.m. was a career. I enabled it. I know that now. Every time he quit a job, I told myself he just needed time to find his path. Every time he asked for money, I gave it, convincing myself it was temporary help. Every time he spoke to me with that dismissive tone, that casual cruelty that sons reserve for mothers they've stopped seeing as human beings, I swallowed my hurt and made excuses. He's just stressed. He's just young. He'll grow out of it. Then Vanessa arrived. She walked into my house like she owned it, this 26-year-old woman with acrylic nails so long I wondered how she managed to function, designer clothes head to toe, and an expression of permanent disdain. Derek had met her at some bar, and within 2 weeks, she'd moved into my home. Our home, Derek corrected me when I suggested maybe they should find their own place. Vanessa didn't work. She spent her days shopping online, posting photos on social media, and making passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my decorating, my life. The house isn't big enough for guests, she'd sigh dramatically. I'm used to more space. Then move, I thought. But I never said it. Because Derek seemed happy, and wasn't that all that mattered? Wasn't my job as a mother to sacrifice everything, including my dignity, for his happiness? The breaking point should have come months before the cake. It should have come when I found Vanessa using my expensive moisturizer, the one splurge I allowed myself, and she shrugged and said I thought it was community property. It should have come when Derek asked me to skip my book club because Vanessa wanted the living room for her friends. It should have come when I worked a 12-hour shift and arrived home to find them both on the couch, surrounded by takeout containers they'd ordered on my credit card without asking, and neither of them looked up when I walked in. But it didn't. The breaking point came with that cake. I'd taken a whole week of vacation time. A week I could have spent resting my 42-year-old body that felt more like 60. A week I could have spent visiting my sister in Seattle or finally taking that pottery class at the community center. Instead, I spent it in my kitchen, crafting what I convinced myself would be the perfect expression of a mother's love. Day 1, baking the layers, getting the texture exactly right. Day 2, making the buttercream from scratch, whipping it until my arm cramped. Day 3, practicing the roses on parchment paper, dozens of them, until I could pipe them perfectly. Day 4, assembling the layers, getting them level, applying the crumb coat. Day 5, the final frosting, smooth as silk. Day 6, the roses, hundreds of tiny buttercream roses in blue and silver, Derek's favorite colors since he was 7 years old. I'd burned my wrist on the oven door on day 3. The burn blistered and wept, but I wrapped it and kept going. My back seized up on day 5 from standing so long, but I took ibuprofen and pushed through. My hands cramped so badly by day 6 that I had to stop and massage them every 20 minutes. But when I placed that final rose, when I stepped back and looked at what I'd created, tears streamed down my face. It was beautiful. It was everything a mother's love could be, transformed into sugar and butter and time. I'd texted Derek that morning. "Your cake is ready. Come by this afternoon." He'd responded 3 hours later with a thumbs-up emoji. When he finally walked in with Vanessa, I was standing there in my flour-dusted apron, exhausted but proud, waiting for that moment of recognition. That moment when my son would see how much I loved him. Instead, I got vomit. Vanessa's cruel laughter rang through my kitchen. She pulled out her phone, snapped a photo of the cake, and I heard her typing immediately. Probably sending it to her friends. Probably captioning it with something mocking. Derek didn't defend me. Didn't tell her to stop. He just shrugged again and said, "We'll order pizza for the party tonight." Don't worry about it, Mom. Don't worry about it. 6 days. 6 days of my life, my body, my love. Reduced to don't worry about it. I stood there, frozen, as they walked past me into the living room. I heard the TV click on. Heard Vanessa's voice saying something I couldn't make out, followed by Derek's laugh. They'd forgotten me already. I looked at the cake. My masterpiece. In the afternoon light streaming through the window, it was stunning. The roses caught the sun, each petal distinct and perfect. The layers were even, the colors exactly right. It wasn't vomit. It was love. And love, I was beginning to understand, had been wasted on people who saw it as nothing more than their due. My neighbor Maggie knocked on the back door 20 minutes later. She'd seen Vanessa's car and came over with a container of cookies like she always did. She took one look at my face, at the tear tracks I hadn't even realized were there, and pulled me into her small, warm kitchen next door. "Honey," she said, setting a cup of coffee in front of me with hands that had raised 5 children of her own, "when are you going to stop setting yourself on fire to keep him warm?" I stared at her. The words hung in the air between us. "He's my son," I whispered. "And you're a human being," she said firmly. "With worth. With value. You've given him 24 years. When does he give you anything back?" I couldn't answer. Because the truth was crushing and undeniable. Never. The cake sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days, untouched. Derek had ordered pizza for his party, which consisted of him, Vanessa, and 2 of his gaming friends getting drunk in my living room until 2 in the morning. Nobody touched the cake. Nobody even mentioned it. On Monday morning, after Derek and Vanessa finally left the house, Derek to a job interview he'd probably blow off and Vanessa to the mall, I stood in the doorway of his bedroom and felt my stomach turn. It was a disaster. Clothes everywhere, some clean but most definitely not. Empty energy drink cans lined every surface. The smell was a mixture of stale food, unwashed sheets, and something else I didn't want to identify. Pizza boxes stacked in the corner had started to attract flies. He was 24 years old, and his room looked like a teenage boy's during his worst phase. I'd stopped cleaning it years ago after he'd screamed at me for invading his privacy. But standing there that morning, something felt different. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before the cake incident. Something had shifted, some fundamental thing I couldn't name yet. I walked in. Under a pile of clothes, I found my good winter coat. The one I'd been searching for since last season. Vanessa had been wearing it. There were makeup stains on the collar and the pockets smelled like her expensive perfume. Perfume I'd later discovered Derek had bought her with my credit card. In the desk drawer, buried under old gaming magazines, I found a stack of papers. Bank statements. I almost put them back, but something made me look closer. My bank statements. From my personal account. My hands started shaking before my brain could fully process what I was seeing. Withdrawals. Dozens of them. Hundreds of dollars at a time, sometimes more. Dating back 8 months. ATM withdrawals made with my card, in places I'd never been, at times I'd been at work. $8,000. Maybe more. I'd have to go through them all carefully to know for sure. He'd been stealing from me. My son had been stealing from me. I sat down hard on his unmade bed, the statements crumpling in my grip. How did he get my card? How did he get my PIN? Then I remembered. 6 months ago, I'd asked him to deposit my paycheck because I was working a double shift. I'd given him my card and my PIN, trusting him. My son. My baby. He'd written it down. He'd kept it. He'd been using it ever since. The room spun. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tasting bile. Every extra shift I'd worked, every time I'd denied myself something small because money was tight, every time I'd eaten the leftovers instead of ordering something fresh because I needed to save. And he'd been stealing from me the whole time. I stumbled to his computer. It was on, always on because Derek never turned anything off. The screen was locked, but I knew Derek. I knew his lazy patterns. I tried his birthday. Nothing. I tried my birthday. Nothing. Then I tried his gaming username. The screen unlocked. I should have stopped there. Should have closed the computer and walked away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Some desperate need to understand, to know the full extent of what had been happening in my own home, drove me forward. I opened his messages. The first conversation I clicked on was with Vanessa from 3 days ago. The day before the cake. Vanessa, is the ATM making you something special for your birthday? Derek, yeah, she's been in the kitchen for like a week lol. Ick what she's making, but it better be good after all this time. Vanessa, probably something embarrassing knowing her taste. Derek, at least she's useful for something. Vanessa, when are you going to talk to her about the mortgage thing? Derek, soon. I'm thinking after my birthday. She'll be in a good mood. Vanessa, you really think she'll do it? Derek, she always does what I want eventually. Just gotta play it right. The crying thing works every time lol. I stared at the screen. The crying thing works every time. Every time I'd caved to his demands, given him money I didn't have, enabled his laziness, it had been because he'd weaponized my love. He'd cry, or act hurt, or make me feel like I was failing him as a mother, and I'd crumble. And he knew it. He knew exactly what he was doing. I scrolled further back. There were hundreds of messages. Months of conversations. Derek to his friend Mike, living with my mom is the easiest gig ever. Free rent, free food, and she never says no to anything. Mike, doesn't she get mad? Derek, nah. She's too afraid I'll leave. Single moms are like that. Desperate. Vanessa to Derek, your mom was weird today. Asked me if I was looking for work. Derek, just ignore her. She won't actually do anything. Vanessa, she's so pathetic though. Like, doesn't she have her own life? Derek, not really lol. We're all she has. Which works for us. I stood up so fast the chair fell backward with a crash. My chest was heaving, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not until I knew everything. I went back to searching. In his email, I found confirmations for purchases. A new gaming computer. $1,500. Dinners at expensive restaurants. Designer clothes for Vanessa. Concert tickets. All of it charged to my credit card or withdrawn from my account. In a folder on his desktop labeled projects, I found documents. Financial documents. Research on home equity loans. Mortgage refinancing. Instructions on how to convince elderly parents to co-sign loans. He was planning it. Planning to convince me to mortgage my home, the home I'd worked 24 years to pay off, so he could invest in cryptocurrency. The home I'd sacrificed everything for. The home where I'd raised him, where I'd poured every ounce of my love and labor. He was planning to take it from me. I backed away from the computer like it might burn me. My back hit the wall and I slid down it, sitting on his dirty floor among his scattered clothes and garbage, and something inside me didn't break this time. It crystallized. Hardened. Became something sharp and clear and unbreakable. I pulled up my phone with trembling hands and called Maggie. She answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Your voice sounds strange. Can you come over? I asked. And can you bring Mr. Patterson's number? Mr. Patterson was Maggie's late husband's brother. A family lawyer who'd helped Maggie navigate her own estate planning. She'd mentioned him before, suggested I should get my own affairs in order, but I'd always put it off. Not anymore. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Maggie said. I spent those 5 minutes photographing everything. Every bank statement. Every message. Every email confirmation. Every document in that folder. My hands were steady now, purpose driving out the shock. When Maggie arrived, I showed her everything. She sat at my kitchen table, her face growing harder with each piece of evidence. When I showed her the messages, the ones where Derek and Vanessa called me pathetic, called me the ATM, discussed manipulating me, her hands clenched into fists. That boy, she said, her voice shaking with rage, needs to learn what the real world looks like. I need a lawyer, I said. I need to know my options. She pulled out her phone. Mr. Patterson can see you today. This afternoon. Pack up all of this evidence and bring it with you. 3 hours later, I sat in a wood-paneled office downtown, across from a distinguished man with gray temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Patterson listened to everything. He looked through every photograph, every statement, every message. His expression never changed, but I saw his jaw tighten. Finally, he set down the last paper and looked at me. You have options, he said. Several of them. First, the theft. This is clear-cut financial abuse. You can file a police report and press charges. My stomach dropped. Charges? Against my own son? He's an adult who has stolen over $8,000 from you, Mr. Patterson said gently but firmly. This isn't a gray area. It's theft. What else? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Eviction, he said. The house is in your name alone, correct? I nodded. He's a tenant, even without a lease. Even though he's your son. You can serve him with a 30-day eviction notice. Legal and binding. And if he doesn't leave? Then we involve the sheriff's department. But it won't come to that. Most people comply when they realize you're serious. Most people. But Derek wasn't most people. Derek was someone who'd spent 24 years learning exactly how to manipulate me. Mr. Patterson leaned forward. I need you to understand something. This is going to be hard. He's going to cry. He's going to apologize. He's going to promise to change. He's going to make you feel guilty, like you're abandoning him, like you're a bad mother. I already feel like a bad mother, I whispered. You're not, he said firmly. You're a mother who loved her son so much that he learned he could exploit that love without consequences. That's not your fault. But what happens next is your choice. I sat there in that quiet office, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds, and felt the full weight of the decision before me. I could go home and pretend I'd never seen any of it. Could delete the photographs, put back the statements, and continue as I had been. Continue being the ATM, continue being useful for something. Or I could choose myself. For the first time in 24 years, I could choose myself. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe. With your support, we can keep bringing more stories from powerful women that touch the heart of all of us. I looked at Mr. Patterson and heard my voice, steady and clear, say the words that would change everything. I want to file the police report. And I want the eviction notice. Both of them. He nodded, already reaching for the paperwork. Then let's begin. The next 2 weeks were the strangest of my life. I walked through my own home like a ghost, playing a role I'd perfected over decades, the accommodating mother, the woman who asked for nothing and gave everything. But inside, I was someone else entirely. Mr. Patterson worked quickly. The police report was filed within 48 hours. A detective called me, a woman named Harris with a no-nonsense voice that somehow made me feel less alone. Financial elder abuse, she called it, even though I tried to explain I wasn't elderly. You're a vulnerable adult being exploited by a family member, she corrected. That's what matters. The eviction notice was prepared. 30 days. Legal, binding, and waiting in Mr. Patterson's office for the right moment. I'd asked him when that moment should be. When you're ready, he'd said. But not too long. Every day you wait is another day he can steal from you. I'd changed my PIN that same afternoon. Locked my credit cards in a safe deposit box at the bank. Opened a new account Derek didn't know about and transferred most of my savings. I moved through these actions mechanically, efficiently, like I was preparing for surgery. Clinical and necessary. Derek noticed nothing. Neither did Vanessa. They continued as they always had. Derek slept until noon, played video games until dawn, occasionally left for a few hours claiming to be job hunting. Vanessa lounged on my couch, painted her nails at my kitchen table, complained about the water pressure in my shower. I cooked their meals. Washed their dishes. Said nothing. But I was documenting everything. Every time Derek asked for money and I said I didn't have any, every time Vanessa made a snide comment about the house or my appearance, every time they left a mess for me to clean. I wrote it down, dated it, saved it. Maggie came over every afternoon when they were out. We'd sit in her kitchen and she'd make me tea and tell me I was doing the right thing. Some days I believed her. Other days, the guilt threatened to suffocate me. "He's my son," I'd say, over and over, like a prayer or a curse. "And you're a human being," she'd reply, every single time. On day 12, Derek made his move. I was in the kitchen making dinner when he came in, his face arranged in an expression I'd seen countless times before. Sad eyes. Slumped shoulders. The posture of a boy who needed his mother. "Mom," he said, sitting at the table. "Can we talk?" My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. "Of course." He sighed heavily, theatrically. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About my future. About getting my life together." I stirred the pasta, said nothing. "I met with a financial advisor," he continued. "Well, not officially. Just a guy who knows about investments. And he told me about this incredible opportunity. Cryptocurrency. It's the future, Mom. People are making millions." I turned off the stove. Turned to face him. He smiled, encouraged by my attention. "But I need capital to start." "Not much. Just enough to get in on the ground floor." And I was thinking, the house. "You own it outright, right? We could take out a home equity loan. Just a small one. 50,000 maybe. I'd pay you back double within a year. Maybe less." There it was. The mortgage plan. Just like I'd read in his messages. $50,000, I repeated. "I know it sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you think about the return on investment. And this house just sits here, Mom. That's dead equity. We should be using it to build wealth." "We," I said softly. "Yeah. We're family. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine, right?" I looked at my son. Really looked at him. At 24, he should have been building his own life, but instead he sat in my kitchen, in clothes I'd washed, having eaten food I'd paid for, sleeping under a roof I'd worked myself to exhaustion to provide, asking me to risk everything so he could gamble on cryptocurrency. And he thought I'd say yes. Because I always said yes. "I need to think about it," I said. His face fell. Just for a second, I saw anger flash across it before he rearranged it back into sadness. "Sure, Mom. Yeah. Take your time. I thought you'd want to help me succeed, you know? After everything you've done, I thought you'd want to see it pay off. The crying thing works every time." "I'll think about it," I repeated. He left the kitchen looking frustrated. I heard him complaining to Vanessa in the living room, her voice rising in indignation. "She doesn't appreciate you. She's being selfish." I stood at the sink, my hands gripping the counter, and breathed. The next morning, I called Mr. Patterson. "I'm ready," I said. He scheduled the meeting for that Saturday afternoon. Derek would think it was the family meeting he'd asked for, the one where we'd discuss our financial future. He'd probably prepared a whole speech. He had no idea what was coming. Saturday arrived cold and gray, typical Portland weather. Derek slept until 11, then spent an hour in the shower. Vanessa did her makeup, dressed like she was going to a business meeting, all sharp edges and designer labels. They thought they were about to win. At 1 o'clock, Mr. Patterson arrived. I'd told Derek a financial advisor was coming to discuss options. He'd been thrilled, texted Vanessa immediately that I was finally seeing sense. We all sat in my living room. Derek and Vanessa on the couch, looking confident. Mr. Patterson in the armchair, his briefcase on his lap. Me in the chair by the window, my hands folded, my heart racing but my voice ready. Mr. Patterson opened his briefcase. "Thank you all for meeting with me today," he said in his professional voice. "We have several important matters to discuss." Derek smiled. "Sure thing. We're excited to hear about the equity loan options." "We're not here to discuss a loan," Mr. Patterson said calmly. "We're here to discuss theft, eviction, and restitution." The room went silent. Derek's smile froze. "What?" he said. Mr. Patterson pulled out a folder. "Over the past 8 months, you've stolen approximately $8,300 from your mother's bank account. You obtained her PIN under false pretenses and used it to make unauthorized withdrawals." "I didn't steal," Derek said, his voice rising. "She gave me her card. She said I could use it. For a paycheck deposit," I said quietly. "Not for hundreds of unauthorized withdrawals." "You never said I couldn't," he shot back. Mr. Patterson continued as if Derek hadn't spoken. "A police report has been filed. Detective Harris is handling the case. You're currently under investigation for financial elder abuse and theft." Derek's face went pale. "Elder abuse? She's not even 60. Vulnerable adult abuse," Mr. Patterson corrected. "The law doesn't distinguish based on age alone but on the relationship and exploitation." "This is insane," Derek said, standing up. "Mom, tell him. Tell him this is crazy. I'm your son. You're a 24-year-old man who has been stealing from his mother," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "Who has been living here rent-free, contributing nothing, and planning to manipulate me into mortgaging my home." Vanessa spoke up for the first time. "You can't prove any of this." Mr. Patterson pulled out another stack of papers. Bank statements with highlighted withdrawals. Screenshots of text messages. Emails about the mortgage plan. He spread them across the coffee table like playing cards. Derek stared at them. His mouth opened. Closed. "You went through my stuff? You went through my computer?" "I went through my bank statements," I said. The computer was unlocked. The messages were there for anyone to see. "That's invasion of privacy," Vanessa hissed. "The house is in her name," Mr. Patterson said. "There is no reasonable expectation of privacy for a tenant in common areas, and even in private areas when illegal activity is suspected." Derek's face had gone from pale to red. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "I borrowed some money." "So what?" "I was going to pay you back. $8,000, I said. Over 8 months. Without asking. While I worked overtime and skipped meals to save money. While you and Vanessa ordered takeout on my credit card and bought designer clothes and gaming equipment. "We can pay you back," Derek said, and now his voice took on that wheedling tone I knew so well. "Mom, come on. This is crazy. We're family. Family works things out. The crying thing works every time. Except this time it didn't." Mr. Patterson pulled out another document. "This is a 30-day eviction notice. You have until the end of next month to vacate the premises." Derek's jaw dropped. "You're kicking me out? Your own son? You're an adult who has been exploiting your mother for years," Mr. Patterson said. "And you're a tenant who has violated the terms of residency through illegal activity. I don't have anywhere to go, Derek said, and now his voice did crack. He looked at me with those eyes, those same eyes that had looked up at me when he was a baby. Mom, please. Don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll change. I'll get a job. A real one. I'll pay you back. Just please don't kick me out. My heart broke. Even knowing everything, even with the evidence spread across the table, even after reading those messages where he'd called me pathetic and desperate, my heart broke. But I didn't bend. You have 30 days, I said softly, to find a place and move out. And you will pay back every cent you stole. Mr. Patterson has prepared a payment plan. And if I don't? Derek asked, anger replacing the tears in an instant. Then we proceed with criminal charges, Mr. Patterson said. The police report is filed. The evidence is documented. If you fail to comply with either the eviction notice or the restitution plan, we move forward with prosecution. You could face jail time. This is unbelievable, Vanessa said, standing up. You're really going to do this to your own son? Over some money? I stood too. Looked her in the eye. This isn't about the money. This is about 24 years of being treated like I'm nothing more than a bank account and a maid. This is about my son conspiring with his girlfriend to manipulate me out of my home. This is about messages where you both mocked me and called me pathetic while living under my roof and eating my food. Vanessa's face flushed. Those messages were private. Those messages showed me exactly what you think of me, I said. Both of you. And I'm done. I'm done enabling. I'm done sacrificing. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep you warm. Derek tried one more time. Mom, I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? I want you to leave, I said, and my voice broke on the words, but I said them anyway. I want you to grow up. I want you to learn that actions have consequences. And maybe, someday, when you've built your own life with your own work, we can have a relationship again. But not like this. Never like this again. Derek stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd only ever seen the version of me I'd shown him, the mother who sacrificed everything and asked for nothing. He was seeing someone different now. He grabbed his jacket. Vanessa followed. At the door, he turned back. You're going to regret this, he said. I already regret it, I said quietly. I regret every time I said yes when I should have said no. I regret every time I enabled you instead of challenging you. I regret not doing this years ago. They left. The door slammed behind them. I stood in my living room with Mr. Patterson, surrounded by evidence of my son's betrayal, and felt something I hadn't felt in 24 years. Free. The next 30 days were strange and terrible and liberating all at once. Derek and Vanessa moved out within 2 weeks, not the full 30. They took his belongings and left without speaking to me. I heard through Maggie's grandson, who knew Derek's friend Mike, that they found a tiny apartment in a rough part of town with 2 other roommates. Vanessa left Derek 3 days after they moved in. Maggie told me that part over coffee in her kitchen, the place where this had all really begun. She left him the second the money dried up, Maggie said. Took some of his stuff too, apparently. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. Derek got a job. A real one, at a warehouse, loading trucks. According to the payment plan Mr. Patterson had structured, Derek had to pay me $300 a month until the debt was cleared. The first payment arrived on time, a money order slipped through my mail slot without a note. I deposited it and cried. Not because of the money. Because of what it represented. My son, working. My son, facing consequences. My son, finally, growing up. But the relationship we'd had was gone. Maybe it had never been real in the first place. Maybe it had always been built on my willingness to give and his willingness to take. I threw myself into reclaiming my life. Derek's room became something else entirely. I painted the walls a soft cream color, brought in my grandmother's old sewing table, set up shelves for my cookbooks and baking supplies. I bought a laptop and started a small online business selling custom cakes and cookies. The irony wasn't lost on me. The cake that had broken everything became the foundation of something new. My first order came from a woman in the neighborhood who'd heard about my situation through Maggie's church network. She wanted a birthday cake for her daughter. Something special, she said. Something made with love. I poured myself into it. A 3-layer vanilla cake with fresh strawberry filling and buttercream roses. Not as elaborate as Derek's cake had been, but more honest somehow. Made for someone who would appreciate it. When I delivered it, the woman cried. "It's perfect," she said. "You're an artist." I went home and cried too. But this time, they were different tears. I started dating. Nothing serious, just coffee meetings set up through a dating app Maggie's daughter had helped me navigate. Most of them went nowhere, but I didn't care. I was learning how to talk about myself, how to have interests, how to be someone other than Derek's mother. I took a painting class at the community center. I was terrible at it, but the instructor was kind and the other students were friendly, and I laughed more in those 2-hour sessions than I had in years. I visited my sister in Seattle, finally. Spent a weekend in her guest room, ate at nice restaurants, walked along the waterfront. We talked about everything, including Derek. She'd been waiting for this, she admitted. Waiting for me to see what everyone else had seen for years. "He used you," she said gently. "And you let him because you loved him. But love isn't supposed to destroy you." 3 months after the eviction, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom?" Derek's voice, quiet and uncertain. I sat down hard on my couch. "Hi." Silence. Then, "Can we talk? I mean, can I come over? Or we could meet somewhere. Coffee maybe." My first instinct was to say no. To protect the fragile peace I'd built. But another part of me, the part that had carried him in my body and held him through fevers and taught him to tie his shoes, that part wanted to hear what he had to say. "Coffee," I said. Neutral ground. We met at a small cafe downtown 3 days later. I got there early, ordered tea, sat by the window. When Derek walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight. His clothes were clean but worn, work clothes that had seen actual labor. His hands, when he sat down across from me, had calluses. His eyes had something in them I'd never seen before. Humility, maybe. Or just exhaustion. "Hi," he said. "Hi." We sat in awkward silence. Finally, Derek spoke. "I've been going to therapy. The warehouse offers it through their insurance. I've been talking about, everything." "That's good." "The therapist asked me to make a list of the things I took from you. Not just money. Everything." He pulled out a piece of notebook paper, folded and worn like he'd been carrying it. "Time. Security. Dignity. Peace. Self-respect. Your retirement savings. Your health. Your relationship with your sister. Your ability to trust people." I stared at the list. At his handwriting, messy but earnest. "I didn't understand," he said, his voice cracking. "I didn't understand what I was doing. Or I did, but I didn't let myself think about it. You were always there. Like furniture or air. I didn't see you as a person. Just as my mom. As someone who existed to take care of me." A tear rolled down his cheek. "I'm so sorry." I'm so sorry for all of it. For the cake. For the stealing. For the things I said. For bringing Vanessa into your home. For every single time I made you feel small. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. I don't expect you to forgive me, he continued. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. I'm working. I'm paying you back. I'm learning how to be, I don't know, an actual adult. And maybe someday, if you ever want to, we could try to have some kind of relationship. A different one. One where I actually see you. I reached across the table and took the list from his hands. Read through it slowly. Each item was a wound, and seeing them written out in his handwriting made them real in a way they hadn't been before. But also made them something we could name. Something we could begin to heal. I'd like that, I said finally. Someday. Not now. I'm not ready yet. But someday. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Okay. Yeah. Whenever you're ready. We finished our coffee in silence. When we stood to leave, Derek hesitated, then pulled me into a hug. It was brief and awkward, and his shirt smelled like honest sweat instead of cologne and energy drinks. Thank you, he whispered. For not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on myself. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Just patted his back once and let him go. I watched him walk away down the Portland street, his shoulders hunched against the cold, and felt something settle in my chest. Not forgiveness yet, but maybe the beginning of it. The possibility of it. That evening, I baked a cake. Just a small one, single layer, simple buttercream frosting. I'd ordered a custom candle from my new online business contact, shaped like a tiny phoenix. I lit it in my kitchen, in the space I'd reclaimed, surrounded by the evidence of my new life. The laptop showing my small business orders. The photos from my painting class. The postcards from Seattle. I made a wish. Not for Derek, though I hoped he'd find his way. Not for forgiveness, though maybe that would come. I wished for myself. For continued strength. For the courage to keep choosing myself. For the wisdom to know that love shouldn't require self-destruction. I blew out the candle and cut a slice of cake. It was perfect. Light and sweet and made with care. This one's for me, I whispered. And I took a bite. If this story moved you, click on the next video that's appearing on the screen now. I'm sure you'll be surprised by this new emotional and heartbreaking story I have right here to tell you.